This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to the Treehouse of Horror
of Babylon,
Glaven, where we discuss Frinkenstein. I am Ryan, and with me as always, with the disagreeing and with the horrible opinions, is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And thank you to our patrons, Abigail, the first breaker of chains, mother of dragons, and
Logan,
the full metal patron, and Ben, the fourth patron of hope. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming for this shit they do. For giving
for being our highest tier,
for being our patron, and you can visit them at
Morgantown.
In Morgantown, at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Get your shit together, Ryan. Outline. Okay.
With your shit and the togetherness.
With the shit and your togetherness, Glaven. I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it either.
So
I have a Jewish friend I could call, see if he'll do it.
just hold the phone up to the microphone.
Be like, hey dude, I need to do an impression of this guy. I thought you wanted me to do a Kinderman.
Oh my god. And don't talk to me about Kinderman. I just started Legion. I don't want to talk about Kinderman. I don't.
I didn't want to say anything.
I'm so upset. We're doing some new content, YouTube Shorts, Facebook and Instagram Reels, and TikToks.
We finally became white women.
Yes. So check us out on all of those, and some of those are getting posted to X as well, but Twitter has some requirements about videos that you post, so not every video can make it on Twitter. So check us out on those other things. Don't miss out.
Their video requirements are really weird.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background. The original air date of this episode is Beck and I's anniversary, November 2nd, 2003.
Do you guys watch it every year?
Yeah, every year we watch Frinkenstein on our anniversary.
That's hot.
And it makes about as much sense as Ron wrapping Christmas presents to Blade 2.
I think this makes more sense.
Yeah, honestly it does. It is from Treehouse of Horror 14, which is season 15, episode 1. Overall, it is episode 314, and this is the second of 3 segments. The first segment is Reaper Madness, which is a parody of a Family Guy episode, which was Death is a Bitch, which was like season 1, 2, or 3. It was like one of the original.
Whenever people can't die, right?
Yeah.
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 That was back when they were way more like The Simpsons.
Yes. And this was... Reaper Madness is a parody of that episode and also based on the Santa Claus, as in the Tim Allen one, because Homer accidentally kills Death and then becomes Death.
That's cool.
Yeah, which is the joke that he made at the end of Frinkenstein.
Yeah.
I wish I was Death. And then the third is Stop the World, I Want to Goof Off, which is a parody of the Twilight Zone episode, A Kind of Stopwatch. Now, this episode was directed by Stephen Dean Moore. He's also known as a director of The Rugrats and The Critic, and was a storyboard artist for The Real Ghostbusters.
Critic's really good.
Yeah, I like The Critic. He did direct Not It, the first Treehouse of Horror episode we ever reviewed, and he's directed 44 regular episodes of The Simpsons and one of the 4 segment directors on The Simpsons movie.
All right.
And then this episode is written by John Swartzwelder. He's credited with writing the largest number of Simpsons episodes, wrote the screenplay for the Simpsons movie, and before working on The Simpsons was a writer for Saturday Night Live. In this episode, guest stars Jerry Lewis as John Frank Sr. and Jennifer Gardner as herself. I disagree.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure and themes. What elements of Frankenstein exist in this parody?
I guess in terms of like the movie, bringing the dead back to life.
So there is an element of the novel that I felt like existed in this that doesn't exist in a lot of Frankenstein adaptations or parodies, and it's that Professor Frank doesn't learn his lesson. After he takes his father out, he says he'll reanimate him again,
and then even makes a soul box. Like, I mean, that can't possibly end bad.
No. So very much like Victor Frankenstein. I mean, Victor kind of sort of does eventually.
He just never takes responsibility.
He never does. So I felt like that was a key part of the novel that, I mean, they probably didn't like intentionally include that, like, oh, we're being really smart, we're going to put this in here, but it's something that I observed.
It did come in there, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then obviously, like, the reanimation, the electrodes, strapping them to the table. Instead of grave digging, once they reanimated the corpse went and scavenged body parts from other people.
Because it didn't want to be part robot for some reason.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I woke up and found out that I'd been dead and now I was part robot, I'd actually be kind of stoked.
Yeah, I would love to be a cyborg.
Yeah.
As long as it's not, like, in the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be down for it. Like, Ghost of the Shell has scared me shitless over, like, it being in my brain. But, like, robot arms, robot legs, like, I'm all about it. That'd be sweet.
And I would like to just take my brain and put it inside a cyborg body. I want to be Dr. Giro.
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did I do that?
I would fight for the Red Ribbon Army.
Me too.
Yeah, I totally would. So how does this parody compare to If I Only Had a Brain, both as a parody and just overall enjoyment?
I enjoyed this one a lot more. I thought this was way funnier.
I actually like this one more too. If I Only Had a Brain is definitely from like the golden age of The Simpsons, and it is good. It has but I think this one just is better written and has better jokes.
I mean, I laughed almost the entire episode.
Yeah, it generally, I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah. As an adaptation, I think If I Only Had a Brain was a lot more the adaptation a lot more on its sleeve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they were like, this is a Frankenstein parody. We're
Yeah.
going to do Frankenstein-y things.
And this one has elements of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But does its own story. Cool.
That's probably how I describe it.
I like it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Jumping to characters, before when we did I Know What You Did Lately did, I asked you, like, going into this, what were your opinions and thoughts on Ned Flanders? So same thing. Prior to this, what did you know of Professor John Frank and how has that changed at all after watching this?
I forgot he was a character until he showed up, and I was like, oh yeah, there is a scientist.
Slavin!
And then at the end of the episode, I went, oh, they're supposed to be Jewish. So
That's my king.
that I said that.
You're like, oh, they're Jewish. Most of my life, I didn't realize he was supposed to be Jewish either.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I just grew up with this guy. It's just...
I guess I'm just not as well versed in those stereotypes as I pretend to be.
Well, and also, like, so Mayor Quimby, he talks, Lisa, he's supposed to be Kennedy. He talks like a Kennedy with, like, a Boston accent. I never knew that growing up. I didn't realize that until I was an adult. It's just like, no, that's just how Mayor Quimby talks.
The only dude I know who's 100% Jewish is, like, the biggest shit poster I've ever met, so everything I know about, like, Jewish stereotypes comes from him. Or, like, Twitter.
Yeah. What do you think of Professor Frink now? Like, how does he rank in, like, the tertiary characters? Are you...
He's not bad. I think that, like... I don't know if I'd want to watch a bunch of, like, episodes centered around him, but he's no Peggy Hill.
There are not a lot. There are a handful.
Yeah.
And mostly they're, like, things where they're, like, they do a lot of, like, anthology episodes. And those, he'll often appear a lot in those, but mostly he's just there for, like, jokes or when they need a plot convenient scientist.
I mean, like, he's no Krusty the Clown or Sideshow Bob.
Yeah.
But
they're high tier.
Or Ned Flanders.
Yeah, Ned's very high.
This episode was funny.
Yeah, it's a good one. What did you think of Professor John Frank Sr.?
Okay, so whenever we're sitting there watching it, first I go, oh, he's supposed to be Indiana Jones, and then they start talking about how he worked on the atom bomb, and it was like fucking Marilyn Monroe, and I go, oh, so he's Oppenheimer.
Yep.
I don't know how much you know about Oppenheimer, but according to the movie, he was basically a playboy.
Yeah, he has that reputation. I don't know how true it is.
I had never heard that before going into the movie, and then I started looking up. I'm like, oh, so allegedly he just went around and fucked everybody.
Yeah, no, that is something I've heard before.
So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And he even kind of like, you know, if you've seen like the posters for Oppenheimer, they're wearing those like old-fashioned hats, very Indiana Jonesy.
Yep. He had the the fedora, he had like a leather jacket, he had the satchel.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking, and you're like, oh, maybe not Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Okay, so moving on to scary shit. If you listen to Treehouse of Horror of Babylon before, we don't talk about if it's scary or not, because it's not scary. We give what's the best joke, what's the worst joke. My best joke is easy. It's more violent than the Hip Hop Awards!
There is a lot of good jokes in this episode.
Yeah.
I think when he sat there and he like was doing a bunch of calculations and then just kicked his dad in the nuts to kill him. I think that was probably my favorite. It was either that or whenever she's all like, our jobs are not all that different. I disagree. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, they're super different.
It's funny because I've actually, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jennifer Gardner is from West Virginia.
You know, I feel like that's something you've told me before that just won't stick in my brain.
I listen, David Tennant of Doctor Who and Harry Potter, and now Star Wars fame.
Yeah, he's just racking them up.
Yeah, he's in Ahsoka.
He should, whenever they finally do the Mass Effect show, he should get in on it.
Yes, he should. He used to have a podcast where he just interviewed other actors and did like an hour deep long interview. And I listened to the episode where he interviewed Jennifer Gardner, and she is a very like intelligent person. And I'm surprised she agreed to this, where it just makes her seem like a total idiot. But
she also, I mean, she didn't play herself on it.
Yeah.
But she had a pretty good sense of humor on South Park. Mm-hmm. I just think that she has a decent sense of humor as a human being. That's the kind of vibe that she always gives me whenever I'm like watching shit with her on it, or when there's like, what do you call it? When she's not in character, like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
She seems like she's an actress who enjoys what she does and doesn't hate the fans and doesn't like lament being famous. Mm-hmm. And those are my favorite types of like famous people.
Yep. No, I agree. And I do. David Tennant doesn't do that podcast anymore, but if you ever like get a chance to go back and listen to any of those episodes, there are some good ones.
David Tennant's another kind of person that I'd put in that sort of, he's willing to take the joke category.
Yeah, he
doesn't get butthurt over parody.
He's really cool, and I love him in Ahsoka. He's so good. I'm excited to see more.
I need to get caught up on my Star Wars.
Yeah, you do. Oh, worst joke. I was actually going to say the nut kick.
Really?
I didn't dislike it. It's just like there are so many good jokes. I was just trying to think of one that I liked a little less. If I wasn't going to say that one,
it'd probably have to be something like really early in the episode
that I don't remember.
Maybe Homer thinking he won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
I guess. This was honestly... It's not my favorite, but it's probably going to rank pretty high for me.
Yeah, I already ranked it, and it was towards the lower end, but I might be bumping it up a couple spots, because rewatching it's just a pretty good one.
Because, I mean, like, I haven't disliked any of these episodes, but there have been episodes where I haven't, like, laughed out loud while we're watching them.
Yeah.
And several times this episode, so that's kind of how I, like, go by this.
That's a fair rate of measurement.
Kiss me, fat boy!
Kiss me, fat boy. Would you rather have 5 minutes in a closet with Marge or Jennifer Gardner?
Marge.
Marge.
Yeah. Marge has tired mom eyes.
She does. She absolutely does. All right, moving on.
Oh my God! Are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz. My king for this episode of the Frinkenstein is Jerry Lewis, and just the voice he does for John Frank Sr. It's really funny.
I'm going to go with the pacing. Like I said, a lot of times I either haven't laughed out loud or I've laughed at the beginning and then at the end. This was really well paced with its jokes. It didn't feel forced. It like kind of flowed with it. Like, here's a nice little funny beat, another funny beat. It was very, very good in that regard, keeping my attention and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. It kind of distributes its good jokes throughout the episode.
Yeah, and it didn't lean way too heavily into one type of joke.
And then my Koontz is just a small continuity thing that doesn't really matter. But, so Homer answers the phone, and the guy says, well, hey, you won the Nobel Prize. No, Homer goes on his thing. And the guy goes, well, aren't you Professor John Frank? And then Lisa just walks up and grabs the phone and says, I'll tell Professor Frank he won. How did she hear what was going on?
I didn't even catch that, so that's my Koontz now.
I actually, this is like the fourth time I've watched this one, fourth or fifth, and I didn't catch it until this watch.
The only thing I can think of is maybe they have a super loud phone, and maybe she has super good hearing. I don't.
She may,
but now that you've said that out loud, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
It's just, but it doesn't matter.
It's honestly hard to think of something like super bad in this episode. Even the jokes I didn't really laugh at were still, like, pretty decent jokes.
Yeah. Welcome to the 21st century. It's a lot like the 20th, but everyone's scared and the stock market is way worse.
That's so fucking... I'm so sad.
Everyone is scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Ranking. Let me pull that up. I think I'm going to have to bump mine up a little bit because I really enjoyed it, and as we've been talking about it, I think it's
sort of like when we talked about Chapelwaite, my opinion improved as we went on.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna put it in my top half and make it my number 5 under Dead Ringer, which is the Ring parody, and above Bart Simpson's Dracula.
Mine's actually gonna be my number 3.
Number 3, below Not It and above The Shinning.
And I honestly almost put it at number 2.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And the trend of you preferring the more recent episodes continue. Well, actually, that's season 15, and we're on season 34, so technically
I think that's like mid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not mid as in like bad, but mid as in
but
midway.
still, like, most people would kind of identify, like, the good seasons as, like...
1 through 10.
Well, more like 2 or 3. Like, a lot of people don't like season 1.
That's when they had, like, that weird animation.
Yeah, the very low budget.
Yeah, in quotation marks.
But that happens with a lot of sitcoms. A lot of sitcoms have, like, a weird season. And I like it, but...
I'm starting to believe that this is all part of a giant conspiracy. Ryan has started to turn me into a Sim.
That's the plan. We didn't get to do a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings podcast.
So now we do Simpsons.
Now we do Simpsons. Okay, that's cool. Back.
We're going to be doing King of the Hill Let's Plays.
Yeah, we are, buddy. Just a couple quick things in Zombie Day. John Frank, the character, is actually named after a writer of The Simpsons, John Frank.
Okay.
And in the opening for this episode, Bart and Lisa get in a
A fart? They get in a fart. Yeah. This is a Family Guy, Ryan.
They get in a fight when Lisa steals a Butterfinger from Bart's Halloween candy pile, which of course is a reference to the fact that Bart Simpson used to be the spokesperson for Butterfinger and used to have 1,000 commercials.
I have a Butterfinger story, but I'm not sure if it'll violate HIPAA or not.
You could tell it, and then if you decide you don't want, I'll just cut it out.
Okay, so I have this patient who was very nonverbal, especially when I first started the job. Mm-hmm. And he's like a one-on-one, so you have to be with him all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm walking the hallways with him, and I'll never forget this because this is the first time he ever talked to me, other than like rambling or cursing whenever he was like having a fit. He turns over to me and goes, "Daniel, do you like The Simpsons?" I go, "Yeah, I like The Simpsons." So-and-so, like I say his name. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Bart Simpson's pretty cool." "Yeah, Bart Simpson's pretty cool. I like Butterfingers." "I also like Butterfingers, buddy." And then we start walking again. And every time I go to work now, the first thing I do is whenever I'm doing, like, because you have to do rounds with day shift when you first get there to make sure everyone's doing their job. Mm-hmm. As I go to his room and go, "Hey, are you still alive?" And he looks at me and goes, "Yep." I thought maybe you'd like that story. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that'll be fun. Homework, I have 2.
Okay.
Professor John Frank Sr. doesn't have a penis in the traditional sense. So how does he have a penis?
Is it jackhammer?
Oh, I was gonna say it's digital.
That's okay. I like yours too.
It's actually a Digimon, and he has to summon it from the digital world, and when it gets erect, it digivolves.
I just pictured something very steampunkish, like with lots of pistons, and then it spurts steam.
Now that I'm thinking about Digimon and penises, Digimon are a lot like penises because, you know, when a Pokemon evolves, it's like that permanently, unless it's a Mega Pokemon. But when Digimon, they digivolve and then they get tired and then they go get back. Small. Yeah. Huh.
I miss Digimon.
I mean, they still make it.
I like, just like as a kid, and getting to experience all that for the first. It's like experiencing Pokemon for the first time.
Yeah, I had a pretty big Digimon thing when I was a kid for a while.
I think that was one of the first things I watched that like really got you into like power scaling with like the Mega Evolutions and just how stronger they were.
Yeah. And a second homework question: now that Sears has closed, who owns the pyramids? Because apparently, according to John Frank Sr., Sears created the pyramids. So when they closed, what happened to the pyramids?
I don't have a good one for this.
So when Sears was closing, they were trying to find a buyer, so they put them on a blue dot sale.
Uh-huh.
And
my credit card I got through Sears.
And nobody bought the pyramids on the blue dot sale, so they ended up in the clearance section. Nobody bought them then. They ended up on a truck, and they sold their excess stock to Ollie's. So the pyramids have actually been sitting in the back of an Ollie's
with those little stickers on them, like 99 cents for the pyramids.
Please buy the pyramids.
Like all the Black Series figures no one wants.
I have bought Black Series figures from Ollie's.
So me too.
Yeah. My solo Lando I got from Ollie's, and I have a Captain Phasma I got from Ollie's that's on my desk in my office. I only get to see her once a month, so it's super special. All right, question for the listeners: do you Glaven?
I don't even know what that means.
Nobody does. It's Glaven.
Okay.
For further reading, just some other amusing Frankenstein content. If I Only Had a Brain, the other Simpsons parody, Young Frankenstein,
10 out of 10.
Bride of Frankenstein.
Bride of Frankenstein is another one of those. We should do more of the Universal monster movies at some point, but it's really good.
Yeah, I asked Ron what we're doing after Aliens today, and he hasn't gotten back to me. But I think the whole like a-thon thing is going over well. So if he just picks another one. Yeah, like
he's gonna do Predator next.
Fine, like then at least I don't have to harass him constantly for playing. Then we have a plan. We did the Blob, we did Aliens, then we'll do Predator, and then we'll do Despicable Me, and then Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then, I don't know, just naming movies. All right.
He's going to find more Yoko Ono stuff for us to review.
Oh, God, no. That was terrible.
I honestly really... I hated watching it, but I liked the experience we got.
Yeah, it's a decent episode. Yeah. All right, upcoming on the Horror of Babylon this Sunday, we are reviewing the film adaptation of William Peter Blatty's novel, The Exorcist. And then on the next Sunday, September 10th, our next novel episode where we review Legion by William Peter Blatty, which is the sequel to The Exorcist. And then our next 2 Thursday bonus episodes on September 7th, the Alien-a-thon continues with episode 5 featuring Alien vs. Predator, also known as AVP. And then our next bonus episode will be on September 14th with a short story by Alma Katsu called The Werewolf. And you have to say it with a German accent.
The Werewolf?
The Werewolf.
I'll try.
It does not... That'll be the rule for that episode. You can only say Werewolf with a German accent.
You've heard my accent, so I'll try my hardest.
I am Swiss! Thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and...
Logan, the Full Metal Patron.
And... Metal Loganmon.
Metal Loganmon.
Metal Logan Greymon. I don't know.
Bid the fourth.
Patron of Hope. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And say hello to Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas, who just grew a third eye between his 2 eyes. So now, instead of being a 4 eyes, he is a 5 eyes, and we call him Blinky. Blinky. All right, thank you for watching Frinkenstein and recording with me.
It was a fantastic time.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you for listening, and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.